Hi everyone, welcome back for Chapter 10. Well, at least we know we won't be drowned if we walk the plank, Jack said over his shoulder to Phillip and May, as the adults, all wearing Icky's wings, carried them, belongings and all, over the water toward the happiest-looking pirates Jack had ever seen. Not that he'd ever seen any, but by definition of pirates being, pillaging and plundering types, big friendly smiles didn't seem to fit. "We'll have to sneak in," shouted the man holding Jack. "Let's just hope the prisoners don't alert the pirates to our approach." "Yeah, we wouldn't want to ruin the surprise," Jack said, as a pirate winked jauntily at him. "I can see King Pan tied to the main mast," the adult holding May shouted. "My warriors!" called a loud and clear voice from the pirate ship. "Free me, that I might face the scourge of pirates with you." "Aye, aye, King Pan," the adults all yelled, then turned and flew straight at the pirate ship. "What happened to surprise?" Jack shouted in terror as they dove at a speed virtually guaranteeing death. Fortunately, whatever magic held the wings aloft gave them some incredible stopping power, letting the adults all pull up at the last second and land gently on the pirate ship deck. "Oh ho!" shouted a man with a long red coat, black curls spilling forth from beneath a red hat. "What do we have here? More of King Pan's warriors?" He pointed at the adults with a long sword, only there was no hand holding the sword, just a long curved hook somehow connected to the sword's hilt. "It's Captain Sword!" the adults shouted. "You can't handle Captain Sword yourselves, my friend," King Pan yelled. "Free me and I shall duel him to the death." And then Jack got his first look at King Pan. Of all the inhabitants of the land of Never, this was the first actual child he'd seen. The boy looked far too happy, with a smile that spread just about from ear to ear, revealing more teeth than anyone had the right to. He was dressed in different shades of green and had a random feather stuck in his hair, whether on purpose or from having just ended up there over the course of an adventurous day. Jack had no idea. "Attack, my pirates!" Captain Sword yelled, and his friendly group of buccaneers launched a rather clumsy, pathetic attack at Pan's now apparently skilled adults, all of whom seemed to have no difficulty fighting off their pirate attacker. Pirate after pirate lost their duel, usually in some humiliating way, with Pan's adults smacking the pirates in the behinds with their swords, tying their shoes together, or even flying around the pirates in circles until the pirates grew too dizzy to stand up straight. All the while, King Pan narrated the battle as if he were watching it from a distance, not happily stuck in the middle. "Pobsy, duck, you almost lost your head. Oh, Charlotte, I've never seen a pirate vanquished so quickly. You were just promoted to Field Captain General Lieutenant Princess. Gregory, behind you! Behind you!" Contrary to the gripping commentary, Gregory was not, in fact, in any trouble. And while he handled his pirate, Charlotte and a few others made their way over to Pan to untie him. Jack secretly hoped that freeing the obnoxious little kid would finally shut him up, but it seemed to make it worse. Grabbing a sword from one of his adults, Pan launched himself at Captain Sword, almost taking flight without wings, he moved so fast. Captain Sword rather pathetically attempted a defense, but Pan just slapped the pirate's sword away, toying with him, teasing him with the sword, until finally, almost mercifully, knocking him to the ship's floor. "Tie our pirate prisoners up," King Pan declared. "They'll walk the plank unless they lead us to their gold." "The mountains of gold back on shore just aren't cutting it anymore?" Jack asked. Pan slowly turned to stare at the three of them, his look changing from surprise to something scarier. "Well, look what we have here," Pan said, his voice dropping lower. "Visitors. Who might these old folks be?" "Old?" May said. "Pirate spies, your majesty," said one of Pan's adults. "Then they must know who I am," King Pan said, smiling his creepy wide smile. "King Pan, the slayer of the deadly sundial crocodile. King Pan, the premier and first explorer of Skullface. King Pan, the only boy to have ever faced the fearsome pirates in the land of Never Bay and lived to tell about it." "Must be a pain signing your name, huh?" May said. The boy pulled a knife out of nowhere and tossed it between his hands. "You may call me King Pan," he turned to the adults around him. "Well?" Ragged cheers for King Pan sounded from the adults, and the boy nodded in satisfaction before turning back to Jack. "And you, my pirate spies, my invaders of the land of Never, invade my lands. If you do not bow before me this very instant, you shall suffer my displeasure by dying. Pan sneered, and then I'll think of something truly horrible to do with you. Jack sighed. Listen, I'd love to play out this whole little fantasy thing you've got going, 'cause it's adorable and all, but we really don't have the time for this. Can you just show us how to get out of the land of Never, and we'll leave you to your playtime? Gasp came from the adults. You do not speak to that like that to Pan, one shouted. King Pan, the boy said beneath his breath, his eyes locked on Jack's. But you're right. No one speaks to me this way. The knife turned to point at Jack's heart. I do believe you have just challenged me to a duel. Nope, I really don't, Jack said, holding up his hands in surrender. Seriously, I don't want to hurt you. We're not going to duel. Challenge accepted, King Pan said, laughing with a touch of crazy as the childish adults separated, forming a circle around King Pan and Jack and Phillip and May. Why don't you put the knife away before you hurt yourself, Jack said gently, holding out a hand to reach for it. Immediately, the boy lunged, stabbing at Jack's hand. Jack quickly yanked his hand away, glaring right back at the boy now. Oh, really? He said to King Pan. Jack, I'm scared, May said, grinning at him. I don't want the 10-year-old to hurt you. I won't hurt him, King Pan said, smiling widely again, this time pointing all of his teeth at May. I'll just kill him. Don't worry, he won't suffer. How about we go that way, Jack said, not liking the look in the crazy kid's eyes. Why don't we do a different kind of challenge? This seemed to confuse the boy. Different than a duel to the death? What else could there be? Jack sighed again. How about a challenge of wits? Pan brightened. Yes, we shall do exactly that. A challenge of wits. Agreed. Yes, I just suggested it, so agreed, Jack said. Whoever loses has to do anything the winner says. Agreed? King Pan's eyes lit up like someone had poured lamp oil into a candle in a fire. Agreed. The challenge shall be that we each declare 3 rules. Then, restrained by those rules, we shall fight to the death. Wait, that's not what... First rule, King Pan interrupted. He glanced slyly at his adult followers and then turned back to Jack. The first rule is, in this duel, you will not have your right hand to use your sword. Instead, you'll have a hook. Jack rolled his eyes. Wow, you've got a real thing for hooks, don't you? He glanced down at his right hand, only to lose all sensation in his stomach. At the end of his arm was a large black iron hook. My hand, Jack screamed, holding the hook in horror. Grab them, King Pan yelled, and the adults locked their arms around Phillip and May as the other two surged forward at Jack's cry. You agreed to the duel. You only have yourself to blame, pirate spy. Jack's mouth dropped open and he just stared at the boy. How had Pan done such a powerful magic? This was no ordinary kid. And seriously, what was with his fascination with hooks? Pan turned around to his silent followers. Well? Another round of ragged cheering, and the boy's smile grew wider, as if that were possible. Now, your first rule for me. Jack gritted his teeth and staring at his missing hand, and then at the boy in front of him. My first rule is that I have my hand back. Ah, no canceling out other people's rules, Pan said, shaking his head with the same creepy grin. As forgiving as I am, however, I will give you another chance to make your rule, but that is your only warning. I want to consult with my fellow pirate spies about my first rule, Jack said, still not able to get past the fact that his hand was gone. No, the boy said, permission denied, unless you want to use a rule. Yes, Jack said quickly, my first rule is that I get to talk with my friends before making further rules. So be it, King Pan declared, and Jack stepped over to May, shaking his new hook at the adults holding her back, until they let her go and retreated a small distance so not to overhear. He whispered something to her, gesturing with at his bag with his hook hand, and then returned to the center of the circle. Now, on to my second rule, the boy declared. For this duel you shall be blind. Instantly all the lights emptied out of the world like water pouring out of a glass. Jack gave an anguished cry and threw his non-hook hand up, feeling around for something to orientate himself, but the mocking laughter seemed to come from all around him. No, May yelled. Pan, we forfeit. Put him back to normal. No backing out, King Pan shouted joyfully, his voice coming from somewhere at Jack's side. Now your second rule. My Second rule, Jack said, his heart racing. Was he really going to be giving up his life for some kid's game? My second rule is that this duel isn't to the death. Rule forfeited, King Pan declared happily. As I said, you cannot contradict the previous rule of the duel, and therefore you give up your second rule. Please, Pan, let him give up, May shouted, her voice from somewhere behind Jack. Giving up is for quitters, King Pan declared. Now my final rule. Jack could practically hear him smile as widely as humanly, or whatever he was, possible. My final rule is that you shall be totally and completely paralyzed, unable to move. Immediately, Jack's entire body froze and he toppled over onto his face, his body as stiff as a board and just as motionless. Well, that was going to make it hard to win. No, May yelled. From the other side, Jack could hear Phillip struggling against the adults as more and more piled onto the prince. But unfortunately, hearing was all he could do at this point, and that wasn't much help to anyone. And now, King Pan said from just above his head, what is your final rule? Jack tried desperately to say something, anything, but his mouth wouldn't move any more than the rest of his body. He couldn't even blink to spell it out in code. No final rule, the boy said gleefully. Why, you're forfeiting 2 rules in a row. I have to say you're awfully confident in your ability to win this battle of wits. He doesn't forfeit his final rule, May said. He told me what it was going to be. King Pan paused. What? What do you mean? During his first rule, May shouted, he told me what his final rule would be. King Pan sounded confused. But you cannot prove what he did or did not say. Yes, I can, May said. Look. Jack could hear her rummaging through his bag and pulling out just what he had told her to. See, this is a storybook. It accurately describes whatever is told to it. Jack told me in the book what he wanted its last rule to be. Lies, King Pan shouted. Truths, May shouted right back, and Jack heard her flipping pages before giving a triumphant cry. Ha! See! Want to read it out loud for the literary impaired middle-aged children out there? Jack spoke to May in a whisper, King Pan read painfully slowly. This is crazy. What he says comes true, Jack said to her. And look at that creepy little smile. You know that little monster's gonna play dirty. Here, King Pan stopped. Monster? Keep reading, you little monster, May told him. Now, if he does play dirty, and for some reason I can't give my last rule, Jack told May in his storybook, here it is, and if he doesn't believe it, just show him the storybook. It'll prove that it's my last rule. King Pan took a deep breath and finished reading. My last rule, Jack said, is that King Pan has to lose the duel of wits. All right, that's the end of chapter 10. I'll see you guys later. Bye.